Yeah, as soon as you're ready. You ready?
Yep, we're good.
Okay, I'll call the Finance Committee meeting to order at 2 p.m. on December 4th. Present is Herb Arrico, Michelle Cunningham, Donna Cook, and Phil Stevens. The first item on the agenda is review of the capital improvement projects. And I think you gave us some documents on that, didn't you, Phil?
Yes, I emailed some items this morning, and I'm just changing my screen. Can you see my screen with a spreadsheet on it?
Yes.
Perfect.
I can see it. Yeah.
So let me just give you a quick snapshot of what you're looking at. So I have been meeting with our two maintenance custodians. Obviously, we run these items past our the principals and administrators, and then we kind of distribute based upon priority in year and try and spread things out over a 5-year plan. This is the snapshot of it. Obviously, the Board of Ed has a lot more items typically than any other group in the town. And this includes, these are the items that we've identified for, you know, some of them are new, and I'll explain kind of the coding here. The vertical coding is just a separate year. If there's grant reimbursement, it says it. It may have a grant reimbursement percentage in there as based upon what we know. And then on the left side column, the first column, it identifies the projects. It's split into district, hall, and center. And then the items in green on the left column are the only ones that are new. So where you see that kind of camo green on the left side, those are new. So this is the snapshot of the 5 years. Obviously, the point of this is if you want me to move something, if you want to adjust, I can kind of share why things are where, and this is meant to be a conversation of where you want things and priorities. And then what we tried to do at the bottom is just do the total. And the thing I wanted to point out was the totals look like they're all over the board, but they're actually, for the most part, they're not. They range between 215,000 and 317,000 each year. But then when you add in a big project, like year one, that ventilation project is a huge project. If you took that out, you're around 300, and the $100,000 consultant, you're in the 200 range. The second year, if you take out the land for a new school, you're in the 250 range or the 315 range. The third year is 268, fourth year is 343. And obviously if you took out the new school at the fifth year, you'd be at 258,000. So that's about the balance of what we're seeing per year. And what I just want to do is fly through kind of what some of the projects are. And Donna, I was asking you before when I couldn't talk, you couldn't hear me. When did you join the board? Did you experience this last year?
I started in November.
Okay.
So I think I might have caught the tail end of it more than the whole process. And I wasn't on any committees at that point either. Perfect.
So last year we reviewed this at the board level only, the full board. And so what I've done is I've then taken that document, and I'm assuming I just changed screens. You can see what I changed to, correct? Does it look like a different screen for all of you?
No, it's still on the
no.
CIP.
Yep, I'm just going to reshare it. Hold on a second.
Isn't the list that you presented here different than the last CIP spreadsheet that we had?
Yes, this has been updated, Herb.
It's been updated. A lot of the totals, cost figures have been changed a little bit too.
Correct. So if there's a new quote, and I'll explain those as we go, if there's any updates, any new quotes, any new information, it gets put onto this document, and then based upon what you would like me to do as a full board, once you approve this, that's when I form the submission papers to go. So I changed screens. You can see this now, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the second document. And we didn't used to do this, and I thought this was an easier way to get a sense of what was going on. And so I'm just going to fire through these. and give you a sense of what's what, and you can look at these and ask questions. The fire panels in both buildings are old, and if a fire panel fails, you actually have to have fire protection in your schools. Your insurance companies will require you to put a person in your building to do walkthroughs every hour until your final fire panel is fixed. These fire panels, they're electronic. This one, especially at Center School, is very quirky. And if it shuts down and we need a new one, they're expensive. So it's been on there. It's moved up to a priority for this year. And again, the key for the projects at the top right here on my screen, yellow is just a project. If it's that, it's actually like a pink. It showed up as gray, but that pink is a priority and the new item is green. All right. And the other thing I added this year was when this was first submitted, I've written that onto this document. So next to fire panel where it says submitted December 2018, that was the first year this item was put onto CIP. Okay.
Phil, I have a question about the fire panel.
Yes.
On the other chart that has the colors, it's a medium level. Why is it a medium and not a high, if based upon what you just said and the fact that it's 23 years old and there's only a 20-year life expectancy?
That's a good question, Donna. So we try and balance out medium high from the standpoint, is it still working? The answer is yes, it's still working. It's not broken as of right now, but it's at the end of its life. If it was broken, I would put it at high, but when I do, I think the CIP paperwork that we have to submit to them is actually a 5-point scale. And I would put this as a 4 or a 5 for them. It's you know, their rating's a little bit different. We have a low, medium, high, but it is important. That's why it's in year 1.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Where is that fire panel? Is that in the lobby area?
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like that either. There's a cover that goes over it. It's not exposed like that. He just opened it up so you can see it.
Right.
Did someone write love notes to themselves? It looks like there's
And
a whole
that's
bunch of sticky
40,000.
notes.
Probably had to deal with the quirks.
That's exactly what it is. Those are all of this is the little codes of, you know, when we get some sort of, you know, alarm, how to look at it, how to reset it, how to bypass something. It's all connected there.
So that 40,000 is for a new box and all the wiring?
Correct.
Connection.
Yes, when you do the full panel, they do.
Line to the fire department?
So we pay for a connection to mutual aid in Tolland. We were just notified last month that they're ending that at the end of this year. So we're going to have to pay for a monitoring service. We actually have somebody coming out on Monday. I just talked to Erica about this because the Mutual Aid Center monitors all of our local buildings, and it was very inexpensive. Now we're going to have to pay someone a little bit more money to do that, but that's who monitors. So if the fire alarm goes off, it goes to the 911 center, which is the same thing. Another company will just then notify the 911 center. So in Tolland.
Yeah. Okay.
The heating project in the upper wing, that upper wing is all steam, and basically this would replace all of the valves and traps. One of the things that's not clear about this that I struggle with is this does not replace steam pipes. And steam pipes have a lifetime too. They have a lifespan too, and that 40,000 is just to get these items to put in new valves. If a steam pipe breaks, obviously you can replace a section. But they have a lifespan too, and these obviously from the 50s have lived their life. So eventually that might be something we have to think about. It's not there at this point. This is just the valves, and you could reuse these valves if you did pipes in the future. But it would connect to our Delta system, and that would allow us, if there was a failure for heat upstairs in the classrooms, we would know that, and that's why it's important to connect it to the Delta. The window replacement I've talked about before. These are single pane windows in the upper wing. They are original windows. They are what allows us to have some fresh air in our classrooms, even when they're closed. You know, but this is the labor for this is reimbursable, but the actual product is not. It's still out there on the project to-do list. The AC for the gym, when we put in the new heating system in the gym, we purchased a system that could then, in the future, take and accept an AC component, and this would be that portion of it. The gym is the only space that they really have full assemblies and things like that. It gets hot in there, but that's something, you know, it's just such as life in the school for the most part. There's very few places in the center with air conditioning. Same thing for this number 5 would provide AC in the upper wing. Again, there is no, in the lower wing, there's AC in the hallway. There is 0, right now we don't have any AC in the upper wing at all. And so that's actually when it gets hot outside and I'm checking classroom temperatures, that's where I go. So this is provide AC into the upper wing. And if you see estimate, I just want to speak to this for a second. One of the things that we've found, and I know that maybe the CIP committee doesn't necessarily like this, but when we're looking for quotes from a company, and this is, we're putting something in year 3 or 4, and we're not asking it to be funded for a period of time, they really don't want to waste their time with us. They don't want to spend their time and come out and provide information if it's not going to be happening anytime soon. So if you see something like estimate, that's something that we've typically worked with MCOR on, just to say, can you give us a ballpark of what that would cost? It's nothing that we would hold them to. But it's something that at least we have some sort of number in there. So if you see that estimate, that's why.
That's 110,000 though. Previously, the estimate was about 25,000 for the air conditioning
In that wing?
in the CES, yeah.
Are you sure that wasn't the gym?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the gym.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think either one of those numbers changed since last year. There are some that did change though, for sure. The upper parking lot. So I've done a little research on this. There was a question of whether or not this could happen. I've talked to planning and zoning. I talked to Mike at planning and zoning. And basically what he said was there is a rule about the amount of asphalt or concrete you can have for your area. He said, but just like any other zoning regulation, they can allow exceptions if you want them to do this. So instead of removing it, I thought it was important to leave it in because it's something that I think eventually should be done. But it would require an exemption or permission from planning and zoning to be able to do this, to be able to pave that upper parking lot. Right now, it's the crushed millings. It's a nightmare when they plow it. They basically plow it and it, you know, pulls up a layer. It freezes. It doesn't dry out in the wintertime. It works, but again, it's not a great long-term solution.
Well, I thought there was something when that parking lot went in that also had to do with the proximity to the historical district. It was something like that. And that was another reason it wasn't supposed to be paved.
So one of the things they always look at is because it's close to the you know, in the neighbor's house, I mean, you can see it in the picture, it's close. We had to put in lower light poles in there than what were initially purchased. I do remember that. And they always look at those things. And that's what the 15% rule is, Donna. There, you know, whether you're in a historic district or not, nobody wants to see parking lots going on forever, right? It's just not the prettiest thing. And there's a beautiful stone wall right here along the Old Farms Road. And there's actually a beautiful stone wall behind in the woods here as well. But that's another reason that they, you know, one of the things that we would probably have to beautify this as part of this project if this were to happen.
Phil, I know there are permeable options that are more like kind of concrete grids that let the water seep through. I don't know if they're plowable. They certainly don't dry out, but they don't get soggy in the same way. It provides kind of an infrastructure. Have you guys looked at other options other than asphalt or gravel?
No, and that's, you know, that's the, when they wrote, it was really interesting. We went back to the planning and zoning, what I'll call as a ruling on this, and they made recommendations. They didn't say no, and they talked about pervious and impervious, you know, solutions. And these millings came from '74 when they did that project, so I think they were free.
Right.
I
Right.
have not done any research on other options that would meet that, you know, pervious, you know,
was just
breathability, however you want to say it.
Yeah, I was thinking because it's kind of already rock dust underneath it. It might be something where you put something on top, put dirt on top, and then you can plant it, and it makes everybody happy. I don't know if it's plowable though.
Oh, I have not looked into that. I can look into that. Other plowable pervious material. I'll ask Troy to see if he has any thoughts on that too.
That's
Okay.
also, remember, sometimes those are questions you can ask CCM because they have their information service and other people have already asked that question.
Yep.
So,
Phil, I'm going back just one to the air conditioner for the upper wing, I think you said,
Mm-hmm.
for 110,000. That's a new item, isn't it?
No, it was submitted in 2018.
It wasn't in the previous CIP listing, I don't think. The air conditioner for the gym was, but not for the upper wing.
This was submitted in it went to CIP in January 2019, so I believe it was in there, Herb. I'd have to go back to my last spreadsheet, but I do believe it was there.
I remember we talked about it because there were students with special education needs that needed to have air conditioning in the classroom. So I remembered it wasn't just the gym that we talked about. We did talk about the classrooms needing air
Yeah,
conditioning.
I have a spreadsheet in front of me that is dated
Yeah.
about that time, and I don't have, if there's a new spreadsheet that I couldn't find it, but
Herb, I think the title might have changed. Does it say, and I know this sounds silly, but does it say CESAC upper wing? I spelled out a bunch of these things that were shortened.
yeah,
I
don't
think
have.
it's,
And you
I
have
think-
that in your spreadsheet?
I don't have the old spreadsheet in front of me.
Well, I have the most recent one that we got last year. 23, 24.
That was passed last year that he accepted or that we sent to them? Does it say whether it's submitted or not?
Yeah, this is the one they used.
Well, remember
February.
that they didn't do, so if it's not from me and the BOE, they only did last year 1 of the CIP because of COVID. They never did years 2 through 5.
Okay.
So it might not show up on their paperwork, but they absolutely have that in the submission. They didn't place all those items, if that makes sense. So if you're looking at what came from the CIP committee, it might not be on there, but that was definitely submitted to them. And I know that because when I submitted this, I said that we should do this the same year we do the windows because it didn't make sense to put an AC with single pane windows.
Yeah. I can understand that. They may have an updated copy that they didn't give us, but this is dated around February of 2019. Okay, we can come back to that.
Just making a note, upper wing. Okay. All right, this has been on there. This is one that went up a little bit, and it was because of the lines and just the cost. We took some pictures. This parking lot is going to be looking like the Hall School parking lot if we don't take care of it. And so there's a lot of cracks in this parking lot that are starting to form. And if we don't seal this was in year 1, I think, for us last year. It got bumped out. I think Public Works has some sealing things that they could do as well. This is one of those items that, you know, we could just let it continue. But I think it's going to be an issue in the long run. If it gets sealed, it would have to be relined, which is like, you know, $1,000 or something. It's a small portion of the cost, but there are cracks like this forming all over the parking lot.
Bill, how many square feet is this parking lot about?
Good question. I don't know.
The only reason I ask is it almost seems like that estimate is a little light to me, and I could be off, but without knowing, it looks like it's bigger than the other one.
Yeah, so I'd say it's probably double what the upper parking lot is, so it's probably closer to 5,000.
Yeah. How recent is that estimate?
I think the 14 came in, I think it was a quote from last year.
Is this just for the materials and that
It's the project.
okay, so
And
the
oh,
town-
Donna, you know why it might be low? This estimate is tied in with, I think we did this with Public Works. So because they can do the work is because the amount of chip sealing or sealing that we have as a town and we're included in that, we're doing it in bulk as opposed to just one project.
All right, that's good.
Makes sense.
That's why I was
Okay.
questioning that myself. All right, this is one that I would think the playground, I said last year I would leave this in year 5. This is just not a big priority for me because it's expensive. We can continue to put either we could put around rubber mulch, we can continue to mulch the playground, but we may have to eventually tear out the molded items that are there. This is it's formed a big crack. Am I echoing? Sorry, it's me. And there's a hole in it. And what the person said is that the foundation before the rubber was formed was not done properly. So eventually this may need some work, and it may not be the 90,000 to re-pour. It just may be a you know, Public Works tearing it out and putting in mulch the rest of the way, but it's something that I wanted to share.
Now, do we have to get that repaired in order to use it?
No, Matt's trying to, he's going to wait till the spring because the playground's closed now.
Yeah.
The maintenance person at Center, sorry, is trying to find some sort of bonding solution to allow it to hold. But part of the site prep work is that's where water runs and it pools, and that's why it keeps cracking.
Yeah.
I'm getting an echo.
Yeah, me too. I was wondering the same thing.
I tried turning down my volume a little.
You know what I can do is
Try it again. It didn't seem so bad the last time you said something.
all right, I'll try the whole school generator. Still there?
Yeah, but
Not
it's
so bad.
Okay. The generator is just a whole school generator like Hall School has. It's bad, huh? You know what? If you want to mute, and I'll give you the, hold on, let me just stop sharing for a second. No, you can't get in the meeting anyways without, I'm just going to change the settings to allow you to unmute yourself. Allow participants to unmute themselves. And we are going to, all right, I'm going to mute you all, but you should have the ability to unmute. That probably,
Yeah, that worked.
is that better? You're muted, but just give me a thumbs up. Is that less echo now? Okay, perfect. So you can unmute yourself if you have a question. Let me go back to share screen. Share. There we go. Okay, so the whole school generator, Paul School has a whole school generator. Stu Cobb was the one that really pushed this early on, just saying really, you know, this is a protection for the school. Even though Hall School is a shelter, this school is not a shelter. It just protects your investment. You know, if we had an ice storm and we could not, and we lost power and we couldn't get someone to that building, it would be an issue. We would hope we could get someone from Public Works there if it was a pinch. But right now, all we have is a portable unit that, you know, to run the heating system to make sure the building doesn't freeze. So it's still on there. The exhaust fans, we just replaced one of these exhaust fans. This is something that's in the MCOR report from years ago. Again, they last 15 to 20 years. We just replaced one over the bathroom upstairs. They're all in working order, and we can replace them one at a time. But you know, when you hit one that is $4,500 at a pop, that's a big chunk of our maintenance budget for 1 year. This would replace several, you know, the fans that are already there. This is one item for year one as a priority. We talked about this last year as the clock system PA. They've added a security strobe piece, which basically lets someone know if we're in lockdown, and it also lets people know if there's an announcement going off. And so many of the at center, many of the clocks have been replaced with the clocks that are, and this is actually a picture of it, that are battery operated. You know, and this is the paging system's all tied to it. It's again, it's lived its life, and it's a priority to be replaced. And really, there's a safety aspect that goes along with this, and consistency. For me, this is more safety just to make announcements if there's ever an emergency. The clock is important, but not as important as the announcement, in my opinion. All right, so these are the new ones at Center School, and the carports kind of spark this interest. And to be honest with you, a carport probably could be moved for one of these at Center School in the future. But looking at having canopies over our entrances, if you were ever at Birch Grove in Tolland, when you leave Birch Grove, you would walk down the sidewalk and down and left or right to the sidewalk to get to the buses. And they were covered basically carports, canopies over the sidewalk, so people weren't walking in the rain. It's much safer during the winter time. We're not constantly putting salt down, things like that. So this, we were looking at every entrance, not the recess exit, but like the bus exit at the main parking lot. And actually, if I go back up to this photo, I can give you a sense. So if you see my mouse on the screen here, the front entrance would be a small one. We probably would not do this full length. It would be a small one here. We would have one that's up the stairs at the upper parking lot in here. And then we would have one out here that would also cover the stairs. And Birch Groves basically ran the length of their parking lot right along here. They had something like that. And this is what you would do now in schools. You would have covered parking lot, covered sidewalks. So it's something we added in. Again, it's not a priority at this point in time. It's something that, you know, aesthetically, safety-wise, there's a lot of things that go along with this, why we're recommending it. New, the classroom sinks. I was floored when I saw this pipe. Matt has been telling me at Center School that we don't have plumbers that want to touch our pipes under our sinks because they're corroded. And then he sent me this picture and I said, I understand why. And so these pipes are original. What this is for is we're approximating about $4,000 per unit. There are 6 sinks. And when I say sink, I'm talking about this full piece. Putting in new tubing, you know, putting in, usually it's a PVC now, putting a brand new cabinet in, a new top and sink. And so these are, and you can see like the separation here. you just can't fix that stuff right now. They've tried to glue it down. They've tried to push it down. They've cut some. It's just, it doesn't, number one, it doesn't look good. It's not safe. You know, if you're 5, you want to stick your fingers in here. And, you know, we're worried about these pipes because they go into the concrete. And if something happens with them, this is an issue. So plumbing wise, this is something that we, you know, that could be probably the most expensive piece of each of these. This is an estimate. It's not in year 1, but it's a new project.
Phil,
Yes.
why? I mean, I'm looking at that and I'm saying it's unsafe, and it's definitely looks like a health safety hazard. Why is it low, and why is it in year number 3 instead of high and being in year number 1?
So we took a pic. This is the worst one we had, just to give you a sense of what we were looking at. This could be bumped up, and you could, Matt and I have talked about this. There's several pieces that you could do to this, you could replace the top and just the top alone, which has happened in another classroom. It would make it more aesthetic. It would make it safer. It would be cheaper. Long term, though, you're going to replace the top, but you're not going to replace the cabinetry underneath. It doesn't change the you know, the piping. It could be moved up, Don. I saw this too, and you know, when I saw the pictures, it was like, holy cow. I hadn't looked under the sinks like that.
Why wouldn't the piping be replaced?
Well, if you only did the top, I'm saying, but it really should. It's like, do you want to patch it, or do you want to do it right? And I think what you're saying is you do it all, right? If you're going to do everything.
Well, so having dealt with this stuff in my house, you know, you can replace the countertop and you can replace the piping. It depends on the faucet, you know, if that's a new faucet or an old faucet. You don't necessarily have to replace the cabinetry. You know, it can be the same.
This cabinetry is not bad, but we have some of the cabinetry where the veneer is actually, because it's at a sink, the veneer is cracked and coming off. And so, you know, like we've talked about refacing things. We've had the Gottiers who have since moved, but they own Kitchens by Bruce. We had him come in and look at these, and he said, you know, I mean, the bottoms of these are you know, rotting away. Eventually, you're going to have to do something about them. So they vary in levels.
So it would make more sense not to replace the countertop and the piping if you've only got a couple more years on the cabinetry.
That was our point. Yeah. Trying to do the whole thing in one swoop. So when you're in there and you're tearing out a pipe, you're doing it all at once. And this was an estimate, because it wasn't in year 1. We've had someone look at this, and again, they said, look at the real cost of this is in the plumbing. Because, you know, you could buy and you could retrofit, just like you would for your home. If you wanted to buy a cabinet at Home Depot or Lowe's, you could. And you could drop it in here, and it would already have a sink prefab in. It would be strong. It would be, you know, good. But not necessarily the piping. That needs to be done. That's a portion of the cost.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so that's center school. I'll fly through hall school. And if I keep looking left, it's because, or it looks like to you, right, you're on 2 screens and you're over there. So I'm just making sure. Hall school, the first thing was the air conditioning for the band room. We talked about this for 2 reasons. One, this is the back sidewalk of the school. It's exposed. I really don't like them opening their windows just because it's, you know, easy access to a classroom. So it would provide security, but it would also, you know, help with the instruments with humidity and temperature changes. And we're considering when we're looking at this, and the reason we're waiting on the quote is in a recent conversation, we talked about a unit that would not only cool, but also heat the space. And the reason why is right below here off the picture, is one of these units. The art, where it says art room, is there's two of those now. Those are the heating unit ventilators. That's set to be replaced, and they actually sell units that will heat and cool. And so we're looking to see if that's there's a cost benefit to that. So that's number one. That's been in there. The sidewalk replacement is blatant. It needs to happen. This is the front. The one picture to the right is the front sidewalk. They just basically filled in the crack. They dug it out recently and resealed it. But what the person that came out to look at it said, you cannot just cut out that because everything else will continue to shift and crack. You need to replace the whole section. So the 41,000 is basically all of the sidewalks and even the asphalt sidewalk, new concrete around the building and those sidewalks where they're cracked. That's not pretty. I asked Public Works if they could do that. They could do some of this work. They couldn't do the concrete, but they could do asphalt. There's pros and cons to that, but there's some long stretches in there that it would be a big deal for us to ask Public Works to do. The parking lot at Hall, it doesn't look bad in this picture, but the back parking lot is pretty rough. They've had professionals in there and said, you could seal it, but it's only going to last a year. It's not going to last very long. It needs to be torn up and redone. This does include the parking lot across the street. We applied for a grant with the town to improve the sidewalk and crossing situation at Hall in front of the building. It also included the parking lot. DOT and I think it was Krog who we submitted our grant to. It's $1 million grant. They don't like that we were asking for them to redo the parking lot across the street. So this number could come down some if they did that parking lot. We just don't know if they're going to accept the project yet or not. The locker replacement, this is not a huge priority for me, but they are in poor condition. It's not every section, but you can see the dents on this picture over here, right in here. That all of that is dented in. This is the boys' locker room. I don't know what it is about these boys, but it's been years of abuse, and you can see there's a wood panel that's been fixed to here. They've made some repairs, but they're it's something that eventually needs to happen. The elevator modernization, this 151 could be higher depending on if you wanted to replace the entire box. Modernization is just the electronics. You would maintain the same box, the same elevator, but the electronics and all those things would be updated. And this is the fire study that was done years ago, so it's just not up to current standards. It is up to code still. It's working. But it's something that needs to be done in the future. That was put in during the 1980 project. That was first submitted last year. This one here is the unit ventilators. There are several classrooms that they use these unit ventilators. This is how they heat the rooms. It's not every section of Hall. This is basically where the addition was put in. This current age, I should actually update because it's now 40 years. It's not 36 because this was put in 1980. That's when these units were put in. There was one that was put in 2018, but we still need 8 more. We replaced one, and I think it was 11,000. We know that 11,000. We know that there's a lot of demo that needs to happen though with these, and that's why the estimate is higher. You can't reuse these boxes a lot of times. The boiler replacement, we replaced the boiler to the left. That would be in the picture to the left was the one that we just replaced. This is the second boiler. The price for the first boiler was $60,000. Eventually, this should still be on CIP. It should still be put in there. And the way these boilers are meant to work is one runs for a little while and then the other, they kind of stagger. They go on and off, and they both run, and they're sized for that 60,000 square foot building. It's not meant for running one boiler the entire time. It can, but it's not how this system was established. Number 8, this is the sidewalk landing. We're not sure if this is crumbling concrete or not, but what we've been told is when this was installed, and if you look right at the base of the railing right here, is even though we've tried to seal it, what they said was water is getting into these railings and going into the concrete, and that's what's eroding it. They've tried to fix it. They've tried to patch it. It just keeps crumbling. So eventually this would, they've said this whole ramp is like this, and you can see the rust on the small section in the back here. This whole ramp needs to be redone, and this is the main ramp that is used every day for school for pickup and drop off of students, and not in COVID times, but pickup, it's drop off in the morning, but pickup in the afternoons and back right now. But this is where pickup and drop off has been, along with, this is the handicap accessible ramp to get into the building. So we need to make sure that's in working order.
Phil, are there other materials that could be used if this was ripped out and something else was put in, where it would be less expensive to build it and also maybe a little easier to maintain, like instead of concrete?
I can find out.
And this would be one area. I'm not really pro the canopies, the other areas, just because I've been places where they have these wonderful canopies, but it rains and people walk in with wet shoes and it doesn't get the sunlight and the air movement, and you still have to salt it because it comes slippery. But
Yeah.
This would be something that if it could be more enclosed, since you're dealing with a slope and you're dealing with people that have physical challenges, that might be better. I don't know if even something like Trex, and I know that's not a cheap product, but
We can find out if there's something else that meets code. It's a good question. I don't know. We actually literally just talked about this morning on a meeting about, someone had the same thought. He said, hey, we were talking about this the other day. That would be a great spot for a canopy or coverage because it's a ramp and it's, it's used. So,
Phil, right near that ramp, there's a park in the parking lot. Do we have a little fence along the end of that parking lot? Because there's quite a drop right there. It drops down into, I guess, the custodian's door in that area.
there's a wall further back down that ramp.
There's no barrier there for people that are parking. It's quite a drop if they,
What do you call those? Herb, they have those, I'm not sure what you call them. They're like parking stoppers.
concrete things.
It's like sits on the concrete walls behind it, but yeah, they are concrete. But they're, I don't know what the name of them are. They're 6 or 8 inches tall, and it only allows you to back up so far, but I mean, you could go over it. There's no fence there. I agree.
Yeah. But I think we should have something there, because there's nothing there right now.
I will look into that. Okay. The fire panel is the same issue as center. I think their fire panel is actually a couple years older. But again, this one's more expensive because of the number of smoke heads that it replaces the smoke heads. It's a bigger building. It's more expensive. The gym curtain's not high on my priority list, but it's something that, as we take care of our buildings, it's something we should do. After a certain number of years, that fabric of rolling up and down is just dried out. It's degraded over the years. And really, for such a big space, not to be able to cut it in half and use both spaces at the same time is silly. But it's something that needs to be on here because of cost. Number 11 is the air handling units. We are, this is out of the MCOR book. We're actually investigating, these are, if you walk into the front entrance of hall, the library is right in front of you. As you take a left down that hallway, to get to the attic space, there's a very steep access ladder. It's a wooden steps that like goes straight up. That's where these units are, air handling units are. They're operating, and what MCOR is saying is that it may be easier because of access and where these are. It may be easier to refurbish them than it is to try and take them out and install new ones because of how hard it is to get items up there. There's another area I'm going to talk about with that today too. It's the music room, but I mean, literally it's just like a hatchway to get upstairs, and they built them up there. And so they're looking to see if that would be an easier solution as opposed to putting brand new units up there. But it should be on our list just because of the age. Painting the library once the roof happens, that's there. $8,000. This is the newbie. It's green and it's high priority. They put a ballpark estimate on this of $500,000. This would put ventilation into that whole west wing where we discovered there was no ventilation, and we're using those air purifiers right now. It should be engineered. It should be a rooftop unit. You could consider AC at the same time if you wanted to do that, but it's a $500,000 estimate. It's quite a bit of money, and there's no reimbursement on this project. So it could be a little bit lower than that. It could be a little bit higher depending on what you do, but it was not an inexpensive project, and it should be engineered. Yeah, Donna.
How are those units working that we already purchased?
We think well.
I mean, at this point, I would say that if those units do the job, then there's no reason to spend this $500,000.
So, and that's what, why the board has to weigh in on this. If those units, we were going to replace those every few days, every few years or whatever it is, we could do that. It's definitely a solution that could be considered. But I think it's important that we try and figure out, whether or not the board wants to tackle this project or not. And that's why we put it in here to let you determine that. It is a lot of money, Donna. I don't disagree.
I mean, there's so many other projects. If the units we purchased are doing the job, I would rather see this get pushed way back and other things get pulled forward.
Yep. The next item is that parking lot light pole. This is not a big deal. It's a new item, but we're watching the concrete posts. This is just an example of one, just because they're degrading. We don't know if this is from a plow hit, somebody hitting it, or if this is bad concrete. So we're just keeping an eye on it. We wanted to put it on here as we're going to keep an eye on it and see how things go. This is not out in the first year or anything like that.
I have another question.
Yes.
So if that pole falls, can they tell that that is still stable enough to hold the pole? Because I would hate to see what would happen if the pole fell on someone or something. It
is. This is one of the questions I had, and I actually went to see this because I wanted to see if you could. I've seen crumbling foundation before where you can just scratch it and have a chunk come off. That's not what this is right now. But we're watching it just because of some of the things that were, how it's almost like, how when concrete gets worn, you can almost see the stone, start to see the stone. That's what we're watching, but it's definitely stable. They were not concerned yet, but that's why I said we wanted to keep an eye on this. And if it degrades faster than we're expected, we'll take care of it. But they are checking on this.
Is it on some sort of regular checking rotation, like every 3 months or something like that?
When they go through and they do their walkthrough, this is part of their walkthrough of the building because they walk right past this. The exterior of the building, because they have to check the playground, they check the entrances and exits, they walk through the parking lot. This is one. They actually walk back towards the river just to look down and make sure there's nothing down in the back there.
Okay, so it's a pretty regular then.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
This is another new item. This is a tile floor replacement. So there's 2 hallways from the 80s of that addition where that tile started to crack. When tile starts to lift, you can never get it back down at the seams. And so this would remove all of that old tile in those 2 hallways. New tile would be put down in those 2 spaces. These floors do not have asbestos in them. I have had a lot of complaints about the next one for 16, the gym floor, about that floor being slippery. We have used a water-based sealant as was one of the options. My daughter, when she was playing basketball, I went to a couple of the away games, and when I went to Bolton, I was impressed with the shape of their floor, how clean it was, and I asked if it was something specific, and they said they actually strip their floor down to wood every year, and we've not done that in a long, long time. We screen our floors. They take off the top layer of varnish, and they reseal it, but it's never been taken down to the wood, and what that does is it seals the boards better. And supposedly it helps the sealant too. So this would basically take they would take it down to the wood. They would sand all the wood. They would fill any gaps to basically balance the wood floor. They would put down all new lines. They would do like a new logo, and then they would seal the floor with an oil finish. And they said that is probably one of the reasons the floor is slippery. I don't know, but it is what it is. So I wanted to put it on here just because of the cost. I would not recommend doing this every year. It's a lot of money. There's a canopy over the gym entrance sidewalk, and that was also connected to the gym floors that we're constantly tracking things in when people use it on the weekends. And that would be over the gym entrance sidewalk and the buses. Same concept as centers. There's the clock system PA security strobe. They did not have this in last year. We put it in because it makes sense to do both at the same time, but it's the same concept. It's not that much more money than a center, which we questioned. We wanted to know why, and we're still waiting for that response because I was curious about that. Same concept though. And then I was informed about this, and I wanted to put this in year 1. There's basically the original heating system is in the gym storage closet next to the stage, and they put in a very small access panel to get to this heating unit, which has not worked for many years. I was never informed of that. They have a small electric heater that was installed on the stage. That's what they use to heat the stage. This is used as a classroom, and you go in there in the wintertime and kids are wearing their coats. And I was like, that's got to be fixed. And so MCOR looked at the access panel and said, just like the other item, the ventilators up in the front entrance, you're not going to be able to tear this apart and pull it out and put a new one in the same spot. They would suggest putting in a unit that could heat and cool, bless you, heat and cool on the stage. Not a huge AC unit because we're not talking about doing AC for the whole gym. It really would work when that door was, the screen, the divider was up to divide the gym from the stage. But we have to put some heat on that stage. I just was not happy when I found that out. So that's why it's new in there. And then the last 3 items have been there. These were put in last year, and the board has gone back and forth on these. The building committee consultants, which I've heard that there's They're talking about forming the building committee on Monday's selectmen meeting. Apparently that conversation is going to start back up. The district, the land for new school, and you can move that wherever. We moved it out a year, I think, and then district, the new site, because this was it doesn't mean this is what the committee would recommend. This was what was just based upon what was voted on by the board. So I think what I'd like to do is flip-flop to the other documents. Based upon what you've heard, and Donna, you had some thoughts. Is there anything you want me to move? And I'm not going to move it on the PDF in front of you. I'll move it afterwards. But what we'll do is, if you want me to move anything, I will. I can move it, and then we can present it to the board on Tuesday night. And this does not have to be approved Tuesday night. It could be, if you're ready to do that. We could. I present to the Board of Finance. Or sorry, the Capital Improvement Committee on, they just announced this, on January 13th, which is the day after our January meeting. However, I need to submit something by the end of December that gives them a ballpark. So what's your pleasure?
So does it make the most sense to everybody if we went down item by item and determined where we thought it might end? Or do you just want to do items that somebody thinks should be changed? What do you think would be most efficient?
I think it might be easier to focus on which ones we want to change as we're looking across the scope of these. The other piece that's always been difficult with this particular process is we want to balance between the decision, is this something that we would do to maintain the building, even if we're going to build a new one and abandon this building in a certain given period of time. So for example, the sinks, if we're going to continue to use that as a school, then we should have sinks in those places and they should be fixed. However, if we're not going to use center school and we're going to have a new school, you know, could we last out until that point is done? So that might make, in my case, I might move something closer to year 5 if it's the type of thing that's still operating, that's not movable to a new building, and we just want to see whether or not we can hold out long enough, because we wouldn't use it if the building were not being used as a school. And I know
Sure.
these things can't wait, because obviously whether it's used as a school or not, it has to do with the integrity of the building, right? So that's always the complicated balancing with this. And we can't assume that we're going to get a school, but we know that when we started looking at this, the repairs and the maintenance on these 2 buildings is going to only continue to grow over time as the buildings age. And there becomes a point where you cut bait. And I don't know where that is, and we might do it on some of the issues and not some of the other issues to try and see if we can buy ourselves a little time. But that's part of my difficulty with some of these right now and where they're located.
All right. So saying that, I don't like that $500,000 for the ventilation. I think that we've already fixed the problem. And that's a lot of money. So going into what Michelle says, if we end up with a new school, it's a waste of money. And if what we're doing now is working, I would almost even take it off the list and then reassess it next year or the year after. If those ventilation units that we purchased are doing the job, it shouldn't even be on the list.
We should have ventilation in that wing anyway, though. I'm surprised that there wasn't ventilation there to begin with. Was there ventilation and it just stopped working, or they just...
Was not needed at the time of that addition. It wasn't code, so there's no fresh air intake. Okay. I mean, if you were going to do any sort of renovation now, you would be required to put it in.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you could move it out to year 5 and just say, look it. And sometimes, Donna, what happens with CIP is this, the capital improvement committee will say, well, it's nice that you thought this should be in year 1, but we're moving it to year 4. They
Oh, yeah, right.
they get
This
to
is
move
just our
things.
recommendations.
But if it's on the list, they don't like surprises.
Okay,
It's
so
something
I
that
would
we just
say-
learned about. Go ahead.
I would say then move that to year 5,
Urban,
because it may not
Michelle?
ever have to happen. You know, and if you find out that those ventilation things that we've already purchased are not doing the job, you'll know for next, you know, you'll know sooner than later. Or if they don't last like we think they're going to last. If they last 5 years and they're doing the job, I wouldn't, especially since who knows if the kids are ever going to be back in the building for any length of time. So that would be my suggestion on that big item.
I don't think I'd move it entirely out to year 5 because history has shown us that when we put something in year 5, it never gets funded. It never moves up. And it doesn't get reconsidered. Just like last year when nothing other than the 1 year got considered because of the crisis. In many years, it becomes kind of the holding pot of the projects that never get done. So I'm very concerned about the way CIP operates for that reason.
Could we move it to year 4? Would you be okay with that?
I would be okay with moving it to year 4.
What do you think, Herb?
Yeah, I think it's a good move.
Okay.
Certainly not going to get it passed through the CIP for next year or the year after that. So, but Michelle, in regard to what you said, I agree with what you have said that, but a new building is, you know, on the horizon, but usually it takes a long time. By the time you get through deciding you want to do it, and you have a committee formed and get an architect and get going, it's probably 2 or 3 or 4 years before that happens, if it happens at all. But I think we still have to make sure that we maintain the buildings. And, you know,
Absolutely, absolutely. And especially Center School, since the town owns Center School and will probably repurpose that should we ever not use it as a school. I'm much more inclined to invest funding into Center School than I am to Hall. Not because I don't think that Hall needs it. I think as a much older building, Hall probably does need it. But because we don't own Hall, we have a stewardship requirement of maintaining the building in good faith. So
I think maintaining the roof and the windows and some of the structure there is fine, but
Yeah.
I agree. Center School is probably a priority area.
But by the same token, the Center School window replacement, I think should happen sooner
I would agree with
than
that.
year 4. I'd be willing to see it in year 1 or 2.
I agree with you, Donna. I think that that's just letting the heat go right out the building. I don't think that's a wasted investment at all. And given how high year 2 is, I would move that to year 1.
Herb?
Yeah, that's okay.
So move the windows to year 1.
Yeah.
Okay. We may do a new quote on that then, just because I don't know if that's a new quote because it was out in year 4. I want to make sure that we have an accurate number, because if we come in too low, it's above
Yeah.
it, we're stuck.
Yep, I agree.
That makes sense.
The sidewalk replacement at HMSO is one of my concerns. And the parking lot replacements, those are things that it's important not to be penny wise and pound foolish. The longer you let the groundwater soak into the concrete or the asphalt, the worse those problems get. So in terms of cost efficiency, we're saving ourselves money in the long run if we can seal those now and not have to replace the entire parking lots. Is that correct?
The center school one you could seal, that's in year one. The hall school one, they've said you're not going to get much life out of. See, there's so many cracks in that parking lot. They're recommending just tear it up and redo it.
Are you back? I think you froze on me a minute
Oh,
ago.
sorry. You with me?
No, can you hear me now? Okay, my internet connection's a little unstable.
Sorry.
I'm saying that.
Yeah, we heard what you said. And what I said
Okay.
was the center school lot, that's in year one already to seal it.
Mhm.
It did not make any sense, they said, to seal the hall school lot, to tear it up and repave it. And then the sidewalk replacement obviously is the full project.
So I'd be inclined to move pave the parking lot for HMS if the condition is such that it's going to be a safety hazard, because even if it's in year two, it's not necessarily going to get done immediately that summer. Is that right? So just in terms of timing, it creates a tripping hazard. All we need is one bad fall on any of these sidewalks or parking lots.
That is correct. I could also talk to Troy at Public Works. I don't know what they have in for, we haven't talked about what they're putting in Public Works for CIP. If he's got a big paving project somewhere, we could actually join forces and look to do that if it makes sense. I just don't know what he has.
Okay.
I like that option.
Yeah. And kind of tag teaming on Michelle's safety concern. If you're getting complaints about that whole floor in the gym, that should probably be moved to year one also.
Yeah, that's not too high of a cost. That makes sense.
All right, so HMS gym floor to year one. Where did you want to put the other two things Michelle was talking about, the HMS parking lot? Did you want the pave the parking lot and the sidewalk replacement to year one as well?
I think the question may depend a little bit on Troy.
Yeah, I would not want to, I'd want to leave it there for now and then see what you come back with.
Because the CIP will toy with that anyway, won't they?
Right.
So if we put it in year one, maybe they'll put it in year two.
I think we need to, in the discussion with CIP though, say that we don't want it to extend to year three.
Yeah.
That it's either year one or year two, but further out than that is we're just courting disaster.
So I can probably get that information for Tuesday night. And the other thing we can do is, I've tried to put projects in the same year where they make sense.
Right.
Like I was talking about the AC in the upper wing at center school with the windows. That didn't make sense to do the windows without doing to do the AC without the windows. So
right.
I think if Troy has a lot of paving to do in year one, we can argue that. If he has a lot of paving to do in year two, then maybe that's the right year for it. So I can find that information out.
And
I'd be okay with that.
And I'd be willing to say that if the paving and the sidewalk replacements need to go to year one, that maybe the window replacement should be shifted to year two to balance out as far as that goes.
Yeah, and that's a recommendation, Tuesday night to the remainder of the board. You can with the new information, you can say, hey, we'd like this to go here because of that.
Phil, where did you put the window replacement for center school?
That's what Donna and was just saying, move to year one. And if
that's reimbursable too, isn't it? Isn't that what you said?
Only a section of it. Yeah, it's only the, and it was of that 82,000, only about 13,000 was reimbursable. It's the labor that's reimbursable, not the product, which is really quirky.
The other thing to make sure, since you're going to be getting a newer quote for the windows, please make sure that there's really awesome warranties. Somewhere in the recesses of my mind, I think that there was some other windows that were replaced at one of the schools, and there was a problem, and it was pointing fingers of whose fault it was, or there wasn't a warranty, and it ended up costing the school more than it should have.
I can definitely look at that. And I know that we're going to have really strict requirements because for the state, because it's reimbursable, they're going to say you have to have this type of energy efficiency. They're going to be really strict about what we have for windows.
Yeah, well, this was more of a what kind of warranty. I think that there was a windows that when the seal cracks and they get the condensation in between the panes. It was something like that was an issue with one of the town buildings. In that way. I know I'm stuck with it, but my personal opinion is that there is no reason to be doing the building committee, the land for the school, and the new school when we really have no idea if school's ever going to have more than 300 kids in it. So I know that's not a fight for now, but I don't think those should be on there at all, or at least moved back.
Yeah, it'll be up to the committee, right, at this point.
Yeah.
Any other items you want to move before we move on? Or are you okay where we're at? So basically you said ventilation project, HMS ventilation project to year 4. Window replacement to year 1 with a new quote, unless the paving was in year 1. I'll find out what Troy has for the sidewalks and paving, and then HMS gym floor to year 1 as well. Is that correct?
Okay, where did we put the canopies? Are they
They're out there. They're in year 5, I think.
5?
Yeah.
And the playground, the same?
Yeah.
That's a substantial amount, so.
Yeah, they're out there.
The other question I have is the HMS boiler number 2. Is that okay in year 3, or should that be moved to year 2?
Honestly, Donna, I was trying to balance out the years, so it didn't kill every year as 1 year is 500,000. You know what? I mean, I always put heat and safety as priority when I make decisions, and I don't disagree with you any.
Well, the exhaust fans, could those be moved to year 3 and then the boiler moved to year 2, so it's not quite a swap?
Absolutely, and you don't even have to do the exhaust fans the way they are. You could piecemeal them, and do it as $4,000 a pop, and you just wouldn't get any CIP money for it when you did it, or you fix it when it breaks type attitude.
What kind of, like if one breaks, is it, besides the fact that you just don't have an exhaust fan, I mean, is there any kind of safety hazard, fire concern?
No, like right now, I mean, especially during COVID, they're saying, hey, make sure your exhaust fans are working and staking out the air. But in a typical year, if one of the 12 exhaust fans fails, it's not like we have to shut down. If the boiler failed and we didn't have heat, that would be an issue. So, I mean, I don't see an issue with flip-flopping the exhaust fans to year 3 and the boiler to year 2.
I'm okay with that.
Herb?
Yeah, it's okay.
My My concern is based upon the age of the boiler. If it decides, I mean, we had it in our house. It broke and I had it replaced the next day kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because you can't live without heat and hot water in the wintertime. So that's just my concern, is it would happen suddenly and we'd be scrounging.
No, I agree. Any other items you want to address? Or do you want to see where it falls once those changes are made?
I'd like to see it.
Herb?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, so Michelle?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I'd like to try and address this on Tuesday if we can, because CIP does a lot of their work in December, and I'd hate to have them do some work and have us not be able to give everything they need in time.
Yeah. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll make the changes this weekend, and I'll email you and the entire board the updated form of this, so you have the handout to look at the meeting, and I'll move all of the items. Does that work for you?
Yeah, you can do that.
And the other thing I'd ask is if you see, once you start doing this, if you see something really glaring, like you said, certain things should probably be paired together.
Mm-hmm.
And that way, if they're not paired, or if, something could be moved out a little further.
Yeah, I'll see where the totals
Yeah.
go. Priorities, yep, definitely.
And maybe, is it possible for us to have a subtotal above building committee? Because that's really a whole different, in my mind, that's a whole different thing going on. If
Yeah.
we're, just so we can kind of see where we are without the building, and to see if it seems like it's reasonable.
That's why I was trying to do I did the same thing, Don. I felt the same way. It's like, I wanted to see what those totals were without those projects. So I agree. Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, just so we can see.
Yep.
And like I said, when you're looking at it, if there's something that should be matched up and something that doesn't matter if it's separate,
No problem. Okay. You want to move to the last item on the agenda, Herb? Or
Yes, we can do that. That's the West Memorandum of Understanding.
yeah. Just
To
move this
extend the utility
here.
staff.
So I didn't do this as a handout because it has names on it. I've worked with the president of WESS. We're working on a memorandum of understanding around COVID, but specifically with the items that are linked to I'm just going to get this on screen. Give me 1 second. Sorry. That are linked to the utility staff. And so we were able to pay for all of the utility staff, and this has not been approved yet. The MOU. I'm just going to share this so you can see. All right, you should be able, can you see my screen now with the blue box on it?
Yes.
Okay, so
Can you make it a little bigger though?
yes, I think so. Better?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. So the MOU is not done yet. It's at, obviously, it needs to go through our negotiation committee. Nicole, who's the president of the union, and I have worked closely on this. These three items, 14A, B, and C, are directly connected to the items that are to add the utility staff to the union. And if you remember, the utility staff are the ones that are doing everything, the catch-alls under the sun because of COVID. And this is strictly because of COVID. And so basically what I did is I worked with with Nicole and our attorney to put in language that basically says, we can only do this, hold this position for a period of time legally and not put them into the union, and that period of time ends in December. This would add them, this MOU, these 3 points would add them into the WESS union. The board could fill these positions if they wanted to, and I would suggest you should, because it's allowing us to stay open. They're subbing, they're cleaning, they're doing a lot of things. And you notice that we did this until June 30th of 2021. So it doesn't lock you in forever with these positions. So if we're behind, if COVID's behind us next fall, and we don't need these positions, we should not be filling them. But what this allows us to do is continue along what they've been doing for the spring. The cost is up top, and this is a contractual rate. We would be matching the same cost as a duty clerical position, which is right here. The duty clerical position is a different position. We don't fill that right now, but the payment is basically $15.14 an hour, and that basically, you see the wages there from 1/4 to 6/16. You see the life insurance cost that's built in. Only one of the members, and I'm only recommending moving 3 of these people forward. I currently have 4 employed. I don't think we can afford 4 right now. And I think we will be okay with 3. Only one individual is taking insurance, so we just factored that in. 2 others are taking a waiver. The total cost is $54,000. We have that entire amount in one grant right now that we could pay for it out of our ESSER funds, that we would be able to afford it. And so my recommendation will be based upon this language, and the total cost that the board extend these positions. They add them to the WESS union, and the financial cost as the finance committee. I think it's important for you to see what that cost would look like, and that, you know, without these ESSER funds, I don't know that we could afford it or not, but we can right now, and I think we should. Questions?
What are the ESSER funds for? I don't know, that acronym isn't coming to mind right now.
It's the Emergency School Relief Fund. It was the first one that came out before the coronavirus relief funds. And what we did is, when we wrote the grant, we wrote it for this purpose and some professional development, but we have flexibility. We can change that. And the reason why we can change it is when the CRF grant came out afterwards, that's the $200,000 grant.
Mhm.
We wrote in every dollar of the utility staff into that grant for August, whatever, to December.
Right.
That grant will pay for them in the fall. The ESSER grant can be increased to that $54,000 to cover the entire cost of these people for the remainder of their time.
Got it.
They're full-time, aren't they?
They're 8 hours a day, correct?
2 hours a day. Now, they both are going to have 2, one of them at Hall School and one at Center, and then another one float back and forth? Or
So they, ironically, they have a quote unquote home herb like Center or Hall, but these folks move regularly. I'll give you an example. So Monday morning, we're returning to school. I put a notice out to the staff. We're going back into on-campus learning. So Monday morning, we have these people riding buses to get elementary bins, the supply bins, back into school because they're big. And so they sometimes are at one school, sometimes they're at another. They're all over the place. It's not necessarily worked out that there's 1 or 2 per building.
now, what duties do they perform?
So
Just-
they are
Anything?
they're doing they're helping do the cleaning throughout the day. They're helping deliver lunches. They could be helping doing that. They could be supporting students. They could be substitute teaching. They could be providing coverage. There's just a whole host of things that they're doing, and that's why it's called
Distributing
utility.
supplies?
Say that again?
Distributing supplies and things like that, or
Sure.
just
Yeah.
about everything. Mhm.
Yeah, they could be helping with, a recess duty. They could be helping with pickup and drop off. I mean, this is the group that when we decided we needed to close for 2 weeks, and I brought staff in on Sunday, these are the folks that I called and said, I need you on Sunday, please report to work. They came in, they pulled all the bins out of the classrooms, they got them down, then when the parents picked them up, these are the people that were out there giving the bins. I mean, they've just been critical and again, this is COVID related. I would not recommend this beyond those times. But to continue what we've been doing, these people are important in that task.
Now, who gives them their instructions? Is it the administrator in the school, or?
Correct. The
Mhm.
principals. I drive a little bit of it, Herb, but for the most part, it's the principals.
Mhm. Well, we have the money, don't we? It's sitting there waiting.
We do have the money.
Mhm.
The grant, I think, is 60,000, and so you would be okay.
I think we should go ahead with it then. It sounds like they're useful in lots of different ways. And, COVID's not going away anytime soon. We got to get through the winter yet. Are you thinking that if the best possible things happen and we're all vaccinated, that by spring that you would lay them off? Or are you thinking that there's enough?
Yeah, I am. I'm thinking that, and we wrote this through the end of the 2021 school year, but there's that little caveat right here, this right here.
Uh-huh.
If something terrible happens, we end up going remote, and you know what? We just don't have the use for for 3 of them, and we had to lay somebody off. That allows us to do that. I do anticipate that these people are going to be used heavily through the end of the year. But beyond that, Michelle, I'm hopeful. Maybe I'm an optimist, but I'm hopeful that when we return next fall, that we will have some better times ahead. Let's say, if that vaccine is going to work and a lot of people are vaccinated, I'm not sure that these people beyond that point, and I've been very upfront and clear with these folks about that.
If things clear up and they're only needed through March, can they be terminated early?
That's why I put that line in there, and they are aware of that. I would give them proper notice, but the board is at its discretion can continue to employ them or not, because they know it's directed to COVID-19.
Okay.
So if you're okay with the cost, I can make that recommendation Tuesday night, and I'm hoping that we're going to have right now the MOU is at the union level, their union leadership. They haven't voted on it or anything. For the most part, it's pretty straightforward. It's a lot of things that we're doing with teachers. It's things that we're already doing. It's really this piece is the most important piece of the MOU. And the negotiations committee will see the full MOU on Monday.
Okay.
As it stands.
Okay.
All right. So if you're okay with that, then I will see where the negotiating team decides on Monday and then share it on Tuesday. There's a lot going on.
Isn't it, huh? Okay. So we'll refer that to the negotiating committee. Okay.
Perfect.
And, you have a report ready for the board next Tuesday.
Yep.
Okay. Is there anything else to come before the committee? I don't think so. Any other comments? Phil, you have anything else you want to say, or?
I think I've said enough today.
Okay. I will make a motion. We adjourn at whatever time it is.
3:36.
36. Okay.
Thank you all.
I hear a second?
Appreciate it.
Yes, I did.
Second.
Okay. All
Okay,
those-
thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay, have a good
Thank you.
weekend.
You too.
You too.
See you.